I'm doing this anonymously because honestly, I'm still not sure how to talk about it without wanting to scream. But I need to tell someone. I need to get this out. Because what happened to my family over the past 18 months has completely destroyed everything. And the worst part? Nobody knows the real truth. Not yet. This is the first time I'm actually telling it. My name doesn't matter. My family's real names don't matter. But what happened to us, that matters. That's going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Let me start at the beginning. Because the beginning is where everything made sense. Where we were still normal. Where nobody had lied to each other yet. My parents are, well, they were, incredibly close to my Uncle Richard. Not my biological uncle, technically. He was my mom's business partner for about 30 years. But he was more than that. He was like an older brother to her. He was at my birthday parties. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding. He threw my dad's surprise 50th. Richard never had kids. Never got married. His whole life was split between his work and our family. My brother James and I, we called him Uncle Richie. To us, he wasn't just family. He was the cool one. He was the one with the lake house. The one who always had time for us. The one who actually listened when we talked about our problems. And the one thing everyone knew about Richard. He was loaded. Like, seriously wealthy. We're talking old money, smart investments, family inheritance from generations back. He had real estate in 3 states. He owned a building in downtown that was worth millions. He had stocks, bonds, rental properties. He'd mention it casually sometimes, like, oh, I'm probably going to renovate the Miami place, or, just got another dividend check, but he wasn't obnoxious about it. He was generous though. He'd help my parents with mortgage payments during the recession. He'd give my brother a down payment for his first house. When my marriage fell apart, he lent me $30,000 and told me he didn't want it back. He actually said those words, "I don't want it back, sweetheart. I just want you to be okay." Richard was the safety net we didn't know we needed. Then he got sick. It happened fast. He went to the doctor for what he thought was just fatigue. Turned out to be stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Nobody says it out loud the first time they hear it, but everyone thinks it. He was going to die. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer it's not a diagnosis. It's a timeline. The doctor gave him maybe 6 to 12 months. He took it weirdly well. Better than we did, honestly. He called my mom and told her straight up. No sugarcoating. Just, hey, I wanted to tell you before the rumors start. I'm dying. We should probably talk about some things. My mom absolutely fell apart. I remember her calling me at work, and she couldn't even get the words out. She just kept making these sounds. These little broken sounds. That's when I realized Uncle Richie wasn't just our weird family friend. He was Mom's lifeline. He lasted 9 months before he got bad. He wanted to stay in his own house, so he did. He hired full-time care. He refused hospice until the very end. And he was very, very deliberate about having conversations with people. Important conversations. He called my brother James over first. I remember James coming back and saying Uncle Richie wanted to make sure he was doing okay, that he had enough for his kids, that he needed anything. Then he called me. I went to see him on a Tuesday. He was still mobile then, still sharp as hell. He was in his library, this beautiful room lined with books he'd actually read, not the decoration kind. He was sitting in his leather chair in front of the fireplace, and God, he looked small. He'd lost so much weight. We talked about stupid stuff first. He asked about my job, asked if I was dating anyone. Asked if I'd thought about going back to school. Normal uncle stuff. But his eyes were sad. Like he was memorizing me or something. Then he pulled out a folder. "I want to talk to you about my will," he said. And my immediate reaction was to get uncomfortable. Like, who wants to talk about death with someone who's literally dying in front of you? But he didn't let me deflect. He never did. He told me he'd left money to charity. Some to a cancer research foundation. Some to the animal shelter. He'd left something substantial to James. And he'd left something to me. Money. A lot of it. I don't remember the exact number. I was kind of numb. But I remember him saying it, and I remember my stomach twisting because it felt wrong. It felt like he was saying goodbye. I want you to know I'm doing this because I love you all, he said. Not because I expect anything in return. Not because anyone asked me to. This is what I want. This is fair. And I need you to know that up front, because I have a feeling that's going to be important. Those words. I remember exactly how he said them. And at the time, I thought he was being paranoid. Like, why would anyone be upset about a dead man's money? Who fights over an inheritance? I was so stupid. Richard died on a Sunday. Pancreatic cancer doesn't do quick at the end. It does slow and horrible and humiliating. But he was lucid the whole time. My mom was there. My dad was there. James was there. And when he finally stopped breathing, it was quiet. The funeral was 3 days later. Everyone came. He had a lot of friends. People spoke about how generous he was, how kind. How he changed people's lives. My mom delivered a eulogy that made everyone cry. She talked about 30 years of friendship. About how he believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. About how he was the brother she never had. I watched her the whole time, and I felt so much for her. But I also felt something else. I felt like something had shifted. Like the moment he died, the world got meaner somehow. The will reading was 2 weeks later. The family lawyer came to the house. It was just my parents, me, and James. And James's wife, Patricia. Patricia came uninvited, technically, but nobody told her not to come, so there she was. The lawyer explained everything. It took about 20 minutes. Richard's estate was worth approximately $12 million. After taxes and debts and donations, there was about $9 million left to distribute. James got $1.5 million. I got $1.5 million. My parents got $1.5 million, split between them. The remaining $5 million was being split between 3 charities. That was it. That was the whole thing. Very straightforward. Very fair. Except it wasn't. James's wife, Patricia, asked a question while the lawyer was still there. Just a casual question. Was there ever a chance the will could change, she asked. Like, was there an updated version or anything? The lawyer said no. The most recent will was from 2 years ago. It hadn't been modified since. But here's the thing, Patricia asked it in a way that made me think she already knew something. Like she was testing the lawyer. Seeing if he'd tell the truth. And I caught my mom's eye, and she had the same expression. That flash of something. Suspicion maybe. After the lawyer left, my dad said something like, "Well, that's wonderful. I think Richard would have been happy knowing we're all taken care of." Very diplomatic. Very my dad. But James didn't say anything. He just looked at his money. The number on the paper. $1.5 million. And his expression was, it wasn't grateful. It was disappointed. That bothered me more than I wanted to admit. A few days later, I got a text from James. "Did you think his will was fair?" Just like that. Out of nowhere. I called him instead of texting back. "Of course it was fair," I said. "He was generous. He left us both the same thing. He was really clear about wanting to be fair." And James was quiet for a second. Then he said, "Yeah. Fair. That's one word for it. What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing." "Never mind." But it wasn't nothing. And that's when I realized that something very wrong was happening underneath the surface. Something I couldn't see yet. About 3 weeks after the funeral, my mom called me. She sounded shaky. "Can you come over? There's something your dad and I need to talk to you about." My stomach dropped. That phrase, "we need to talk," means something bad is coming. I drove over immediately. They were sitting in the kitchen when I got there. My parents. Looking like they'd been waiting for me. My dad had this expression I'd only seen a few times before. Scared. Uncertain. We found something, my mom said. In Richard's papers. The lawyer gave us copies of everything. And there's a clause we didn't understand during the reading. We want to ask you about it. She slid a document across the table. It was a letter. In Richard's handwriting. Dated about 6 months ago. About 2 months before he was diagnosed. The letter said, "If at any point before the reading of my will, any member of my family tries to convince me to change my will in their favor, or if I discover that someone is attempting to manipulate my medical decisions or my estate for financial gain, I want to be clear, that person will be removed from the will entirely and replaced with a monetary donation to charity." I sat there reading it 3 times. And I kept thinking, why would Richard write this? Why would he feel like he needed to? "That's strange," I said finally. "That's what we thought," my dad said. "We don't understand it. Richard was healthy when he wrote it. He had no reason to think anyone would do something like that. Unless," my mom said slowly, "someone already had done something. Or he already suspected something was going to happen." The implication hung in the air like poison. "Who?" I asked. But I already had a terrible feeling. "You don't think James?" "I don't know what I think," my mom said. And she started crying. These quiet, controlled tears like she didn't want to fall apart but couldn't stop it. My dad rubbed her back and wouldn't look at me. "We want to ask you something," my dad said. "And we need you to be honest with us. Did Richard ever mention changing his will? Did he ever say he wanted to give something to one of us over the others? Did he seem worried about something?" I thought about that conversation I'd had with him. The way he'd emphasized that he wanted everything to be fair. The way he'd said, "I have a feeling that's going to be important." "I don't think so," I said carefully. He seemed at peace with what he'd decided. He wanted us to know it was fair." My mom made this sound like a wounded animal. And that's when I understood. That's when I actually got it. Someone had tried to manipulate him. Someone had wanted more than what he'd given us. And Richard had caught them doing it. The next day, my mom called James. I wasn't there, but my dad told me about it. He said my mom asked directly, "Did you ask Richard to change his will?" And James denied it immediately. "What? No. Mom, what are you talking about?" But apparently, his voice had done that thing. That thing where it goes up at the end, where it sounds like a question, like he was asking permission to lie. My mom said, "I'm just asking. Because we found a letter." And then James got defensive. Really defensive. He said, "If you're asking whether I think it's fair that you and Dad get the same amount as me and Sarah, then yeah, maybe not. But that's between me and Richard. And he's dead now, so it doesn't matter." That's what killed it. That sentence. "I think it's fair that you and Dad get the same amount." Because the will didn't say anything about what my parents got. Unless he'd asked Richard about the details. Unless Richard had told him something. Unless Richard had been planning something different, and James had found out. 2 days after that, James came to the house. Unexpected. Just showed up at dinner time like he used to when we were kids. He looked terrible. Thin. Dark circles under his eyes. Like he hadn't slept in a week. "We need to clear the air," he said to all of us. "Because Mom basically accused me of trying to manipulate a dying man, and I want to set the record straight." My parents exchanged a look. "Okay," my dad said. "Tell us." And James took a breath. And he lied to our faces. "I did talk to Richard about his will," he said. "I'm not going to pretend I didn't. But not because I was trying to manipulate him. Because I needed money." "Okay. There. I said it. I needed money, and I asked Uncle Richie if he could help me." My stomach it bottomed out. "What kind of money?" my mom asked quietly. James looked at Patricia, who was standing in the hallway, and she made this tiny motion with her head. Like she was telling him to keep going. "I have some debt," he said. Some investments that didn't go well. And I needed cash. Fast. So I went to Richard and I asked him if maybe he could leave me a little bit more because I was in trouble. How much more? My dad asked. A few million, James said. I was asking for a few million extra. The silence after that was the loudest thing I've ever heard. And what did he say? My mom asked. He said no, James said. He said he wasn't going to let his money become an excuse for me to not fix my own problems. He said he loved me, but he wasn't going to do it. I believed him. Which made it worse somehow. Because if he was lying, I wanted him to be lying in a bigger way. I wanted him to be a villain. But instead, he was just desperate. Just a person in trouble who'd asked his rich uncle for help and been told no. Why didn't you tell us? My mom asked. Why didn't you come to us? Because you couldn't have helped, James said. And because I was embarrassed. And because I didn't want everyone to know I was failing. Here's where it gets bad. My dad, trying to be helpful, trying to be the peacemaker, suggested that maybe we could help. That maybe we could pool some of our inheritance to help James out of his financial mess. And James looked like he might cry. He looked so grateful. And he said, I don't want your money. But James, my mom started. No, he said. I'm handling it. I'm going to sell some things. I'm going to figure it out. I shouldn't have asked Richard. I definitely shouldn't be asking you guys. I just wanted you to know the truth before Mom decided I was some kind of greedy asshole. He looked directly at my mom when he said that. There was anger there. So much anger. I'm not saying you're greedy, my mom said. But you're thinking it, James said. And then Patricia stepped out of the hallway, and she said, he asked because we're in real trouble. And because Richard had all this money and wouldn't help family. That doesn't make him a bad person. It makes Richard kind of cruel. Cruel. She called Richard cruel. In our house. At our dinner table. While we were all still grieving. And James didn't disagree with her. After James left, my parents looked at me like they were waiting for me to solve a puzzle. Something's not right, my mom said. He's lying about something. Maybe he's just embarrassed, I said, but I didn't believe it. No, my dad said. His whole story doesn't track. Richard had specific language about manipulation. James asked for money. Richard said no. That's not manipulation, that's a normal family conversation. Why would Richard write that letter? Unless, I realized, there had been something else. Something James wasn't telling us. I did something I'm not proud of. I contacted Richard's lawyer and asked if Richard had left any other documents. Any letters specifically addressed to my parents or to me. He said there was one. A letter addressed to my mom. Sealed. Marked to only be opened in case of family conflict regarding the estate. My mom opened it that night. And she called me immediately. Come over, she said. And she was crying. Please come right now. The letter. Richard's letter to my mom was handwritten. 3 pages. And it was heartbreaking. He explained that James had come to him about 6 months before he died. That James wasn't just asking for a loan. He was asking Richard to change his will to give him significantly more money than my parents or me. He was saying he deserved it because he had kids. Because he was supporting a family. And Richard had said no. But then James had come back. Multiple times. Had gotten increasingly angry and manipulative. Had said things like, you don't even have a family. You're just going to let it all go to charity. That's sick. That's wasteful. According to Richard's letter, James had said, you're being selfish. You're choosing dead charities over living people. And that's what prompted the protective clause. That's why Richard had written a letter threatening to remove anyone from the will if they tried to manipulate him. But the thing that made my mom break was this part. Richard wrote, I love James. But I'm worried he's going to grow to resent me, and then resent all of you, and then the money I leave him will be poison. So I'm trying to set it up so that he gets enough to help, but not so much that he feels like I didn't help enough. It's a terrible position to be in. I'm choosing what I hope will hurt the least, knowing it's going to hurt anyway. He was trying to save my brother from himself. And it was going to backfire spectacularly. The next day, my mom called James and asked him to come back over. He brought Patricia. Of course he did. My mom, in that careful way she has of being kind even when she's destroying something, told him about the letter. James's face went through about 17 different expressions. Shock. Anger. Shame. Defensiveness. He didn't understand, James said. He didn't understand what I was going through. So you did ask him for money multiple times, my mom said. I asked him to help me, James said. That's different. You asked him to change his will because you thought your family deserved more than charities, my mom said. And she was using her quiet voice. The voice that means she's about to destroy you with kindness. You told him he was selfish. He was being selfish, Patricia said. A man with $12 million who wouldn't help his family when we needed him. That is selfish. Richard helped you, my dad said quietly. He helped you all the time. He gave you a down payment on your house. He paid for your kids' preschool. That was different, Patricia said. That was gifts. This was about him recognizing his responsibility to family. He didn't feel he had that responsibility, my mom said. And that was his choice. That was his money. And now it's gone, James said. His voice was quiet and ugly. It's gone to animals and dead people's research. While we're standing here barely making our mortgage. There was that admission. There was the truth, finally. Not that he'd asked for money. That he resented Richard for dying without giving it to him. My mom's face crumpled. And she said, I think you should leave. James didn't apologize. He and Patricia left. And then my parents had to call me and tell me everything. And I remember sitting in their living room thinking, this is it. This is the moment. The moment where everything gets broken. I was right. But I had no idea how much worse it was going to get. Because 3 weeks later, Patricia did something that actually broke the family in half. Patricia texted my mom the day before and said she couldn't make it. Too much family tension. She didn't think it would be healthy. My mom said she understood. And I think she actually did. But then, 2 days after Thanksgiving, my mom got an email. From an unknown address. With a voice recording attached. It was a conversation between James and Patricia. A private conversation. Recorded without anyone's knowledge. In it, Patricia was saying things like, your mom is being so sanctimonious about this. Like she's never wanted money from Richard. And James was saying, she probably has asked him. Multiple times. She's just better at hiding it. And Patricia was saying, so what are we going to do? Are we just going to let them keep the money while we lose the house? And James was saying, I don't know. There has to be something. Richard wrote other things. He had to have. And that's when my stomach dropped. Because they weren't just bitter. They were planning something. He'd told the bank he was Richard's nephew and that he needed to retrieve personal items. The bank checked with the executor of the will, which was the lawyer, and the lawyer said no. James wasn't allowed. So James's next move was to ask me to help him. He called me and said, I need to get into Uncle Richie's house. There are some things of his I want to keep. Some memories. And I said yes. Because he was my brother, and he was suffering, and I didn't realize what he was actually looking for. We went over there together on a Sunday afternoon. The house was being kept by a property manager, but they let us in. And James went straight for Richard's office. He went through drawers. He looked through files. He pulled books off shelves like he was looking for something specific. What are you looking for? I asked finally. Nothing, he said. Just remembering. But he was lying. He was looking for evidence. Looking for another will. Looking for proof that Richard had been going to give him more money and had changed his mind. Or maybe he was looking for something else entirely. Maybe he was looking for leverage. But something James did in that office set off a chain reaction that exposed everything. He knocked over a plant. A little succulent in a pot on Richard's desk. And when he was cleaning it up, a key fell out from the soil. A safety deposit box key. And I'm going to be honest, I should have stopped him. I should have said, "That's not ours. That's not our place." But I didn't. I watched him pick it up. I watched him realize what it was. "It's probably nothing," he said. But we both knew. He put the key in his pocket, and we left. "Your brother tried to break into a safety deposit box," my mom said. "Using a key he found. That is Richard's private property. The lawyer is furious." "Did he get in?" I asked. "No," my mom said. "Thank God. But he's going to try again. The lawyer's getting a restraining order." And this is the moment where everything shifted. This is where James went from being a desperate guy in debt to being someone actively trying to steal from a dead man's estate. This is where my parents had to choose between protecting their son and protecting what Richard had left behind. And this is where I realized, this was never going to end. This was going to be a war. "I don't recognize my son anymore," she said. "And I don't know how to help him without betraying Richard. Without betraying you. Without betraying myself." And she started crying. These huge, body-shaking sobs. And I held her, and I realized that we'd crossed a line. We'd gone from grief to chaos. "What was in the box?" I asked. "Do you think?" "I don't know," my mom said. "But I'm going to find out. And when I do, I'm afraid of what it's going to mean for our family." That was 6 months ago. Since then, things have gotten so much worse. So much darker. There are secrets I didn't know about. There are lies that went back decades. There are things about Richard, about my parents, about my entire family that I've discovered that I can never unhear. And I genuinely couldn't fit everything that happened into one video. Trust me, it somehow gets even worse from here. Check the channel for part 2.